back to Eczema Phoenix, where we learn how to transform the way we live with eczema. Welcome to my 7th and final video in the Sherlock Your Skin series. If you've been following this series, I hope that you've been gaining a lot of insight on the many ways you can heal, the various factors in your lifestyle and environment that can potentially be triggers, but also potentially be tools and clues that you can use to put together the puzzle pieces of your specific picture of eczema and map out where you need to focus and different things that you can tweak here and there and factors that you can experiment with to create more balance and peace and relief in your life and in your skin. If you'd like to see the 6 videos, I'll put links to them in the description box below so that you can catch up and see all of the wonderful ways that we can heal our skin and improve our eczema. So today's topic in the Sherlock Your Skin series will be on the relationship between genetics, ethnicity, culture, and eczema. And in my experience, I find that when I am reading about other people's experiences with skincare products and eczema, they give these rave reviews for different things, tips and tricks and products that they've tried and announce it to the world. I definitely appreciate it because I'm the same way when I find something that I really like or that I think other people will really benefit from, like, oh, I just want to announce it at the top of a mountain and just tell the world, you know, this is the thing that really worked for me, that, you know, maybe it'll work for you, and I want the whole world to heal from eczema from this one thing that was really working for me. And I think that information is still useful and should still be out there, but should also be taken with a little bit of precaution, because what I've noticed over the past 12 years of actively tracking and observing different patterns of my eczema and starting to observe the sort of experiences and recommendations and triggers that affect other people with eczema in social media. And in my personal life, also as in my profession as a makeup artist, I ask a lot of questions about people who reveal that they have eczema too. And I find that a good amount of people who seem to be of lighter skin tone, who live in the Netherlands in very cold areas where like sheep and wool are very common, they really seem to respond well to lanolin. And I did mention this in a previous Sherlock Your Skin video, I think on cosmetics. And lanolin for me is super drying and kind of irritating as well. And I think to myself, why wouldn't lanolin be a great ingredient or a great moisturizing ingredient for all people with eczema, if there are people with eczema who do benefit from using it and find relief from it? There will be people recommending products with lanolin like through the roof, but in my experience, I just find it to be very bad for my skin. And when I think about it, I'm like, you know what? As much as I would like to be colorblind in this world, when it comes to health, I think that there are some strong genetic and ethnic factors that make a difference. And in terms of like what sort of food and cosmetics and maybe clothing, different fabrics might be best for my particular skin type. And when I think about the Philippines, I realize there are no sheep there. And it's very tropical, and the sort of native food and plants that grow there that are moisturizing are coconut, mango, you know, for mango butter, avocado, and those types of foods. And those have always been really good to me. They make me feel good when I eat them and when I apply them topically on my skin. But there might be other people who have ethnic and genetic backgrounds that may make them allergic to mango or avocado or coconut, and I've seen it out there. So there's no one cure-all for everyone, and it's important to consider the ethnicity of the person who is making certain recommendations to you. Like, even while you are watching me right now, if you are not a Filipino or Filipino American or have any Filipino in your blood, you may want to take my recommendations with a grain of salt. Aside from the things about like emotions and spirituality, I think when it comes to personal nourishment and the way that food becomes, the way we become what we eat on a very literal cellular level, I think that considering the environment that our ancestors, that our parents and our ancestors have grown up in, you have to consider also the kind of food and wildlife and plants that your ancestors grew up with that have become such a part of their genetic code that has been passed down to you. And even if your parents have immigrated to another country, there will be different foods and environments that you specifically will be exposed to, which will affect your genetic code that you pass on to your offspring if you have any. But when I think about when things get tough in life, what is the first thing people do, or what is the first thing a kid is going to do if he or she experiences pain or takes a fall and has a scrape or something like that? And that is usually, if you have this kind of relationship in your life, is to go back to your mother, go back to your family, go back to live with your parents after college, if you lived in a dormitory there. And there is a greater connection to that. Coming back to home, coming back to the motherland, coming back to your actual mother if she is in your life, or a mother, maternal figure in your life, a guardian. You do that because that is where you came from, and that was your first experience of protection and hopefully nourishment. That there was some kind of person or entity in your life who took on that role for you to take care of you. And then when you think of it in like a grander scale of genetics and ethnicity, both in my experience and the experience of people around me, we have found that, like, say we eat some kind of like new fusion cuisine that's not, settling well in our stomach because our body is like not used to it and doesn't process it very well because it's just such a foreign food, or a food that our body is just not built to break down and digest. Eating food from our ancestors has always brought in comfort. I know someone who is Lebanese, and she will often eat dolmas, which are really tasty, savory, tangy rice rolls that are wrapped in some sort of leaf, I think a dolma leaf, of course. And eating that always brings her comfort and brings her digestion back up and just makes her feel better emotionally and spiritually. I feel the same way I'm actually a pretty adventurous eater, but occasionally if I'm really wanting some comfort, I go back to rice porridge with ginger, which is something my mom always made growing up, which was common in the Philippines to eat lugao, aka rice porridge or chicken rice porridge, which is good for digestion and also good for a cold because of the ginger root. So that's something to consider, to take that example and apply it to even the kind of ingredients that are in your cosmetic products, the things that are obviously in your diet. Also to consider that as a factor that could be related to climate and how your skin reacts to it based on the kind of climate that your ancestors grew up with over who knows how many years and generations. And so I'm not saying don't listen to anyone who doesn't look like you, because these days, there's also a lot of mixed ethnicities. So many people could be so many things these days, and it's a beautiful thing. But if you can find that information out, like for your own background and then the background of the person that you are listening to who's making this recommendation for eczema, it's just something to consider and look more into to see if that is a recommendation that will be relevant for you, or if you can take their recommendation, consider their background and upbringing, and then compare it to yours and make the appropriate adjustments. Also, there's just nothing like life experience, so you could just try all of these recommendations from various people in various backgrounds and just see if it works for you or not. Maybe you have some hidden ethnic connection to this person, and that's why you're drawn to them, and maybe it is something that will work for you after all. And if it's not, then it's something to note and keep track of in the back of your mind, or in a notebook, a journal, whichever way you like to keep notes about these kind of things. I personally believe that eczema is a result of a weakened immune system, and that is something that could be inherited from someone else who has had a compromised immune system in the family for whatever reason. In my family, my dad actually did have a little bit of eczema growing up. It was never really like full blown, and I never noticed any rashes on him growing up, but he definitely but definitely I noticed he would scratch when he felt stressed, not to the point of breaking the skin, but just as a stress reaction. So I guess you could call it neurodermatitis, just without all the oozing and the bleeding. It was just more of a surface level scratch to relieve stress. And there's also the aspect of, bringing back the topic of emotions and the spirit having an effect on the expression of eczema, or the effect of just having eczema show up in your life. I know a number of people, and I may be one of them too, who sense a connection to their eczema being related to their mothers being very stressed out while they were pregnant. And I believe in that because stress does weaken the immune system. And it would make sense that if the mother was going through a lot of stress during her pregnancy, that would pass along to the baby. And I'm thinking maybe it's the raised cortisol levels that are very inflammatory and taxing on the mother's immune system, which is then absorbed and passed on to the baby. I'm not a doctor. If you or someone you know has the science to really back this up, I would love to hear it, and I would love to add it to a future video. You can never stop learning, as I always say. I've met at least a handful of people who have had that experience, and to have such a strong pattern, and to me it makes sense that the baby would be super connected to the mother during its incubation, that I could see that being a connection as well. And that is why I think honoring pregnancies and honoring motherhood coming up is really important. And stress is going to happen, but hopefully it is also followed up with a lot of good times and a lot more times that make up for the stress, that are just relaxing and joyful and nourishing and caring, so that the mother is able to birth as healthy a baby as possible. Definitely be receptive to what any person with eczema has to say, because I do believe, like, in the end, we are all human, we are all one human race, and we all have, similar physiology and a similar form. Our skin is built in similar ways, but just keep in mind that environment, diet, anything else that you or your ancestors were exposed to over time will affect the quality of the skin in the body and what it's able to process and break down. So having said all of that, I would like to invite you, as my own personal experiment with eczema and trying to break it down into a system of approaches and methods to heal it and to understand it, I would like to invite you to actually fill out a quick survey form of your background and your eczema and experience with it. It will include all of the 7 factors that I have talked about during this Sherlock Your Skin series, because for whatever reason in this lifetime, and especially in this past year, I've either become blessed or possessed with being obsessed with cracking down on what eczema is and how to systematically approach it in a way that consistently works. I have my system and method that works for me. I've shared as much of it as I possibly can in these past 7 videos. I hope that they will help you out there, but I know that I don't have all of the answers and I don't have all of the information. But maybe together as a community and as a group effort, we can start to collect information and to start see larger patterns of what this condition really is and what are the most effective methods and approaches to healing it. If you are a scientist or a funder or someone who could benefit from the study of eczema, certainly different sort of medical professions, dermatology associations all over the world would benefit from having this type of information. I invite you to conduct your own surveys and studies in your own regions, or if you have the time to make it global, I am opening up this survey to the world because I'm happy to receive whatever kind of information I can about it. I don't care how extraneous the detail is, how obscure or abstract it seems to be. If you have eczema and you see some sort of connection or correlation to something, I am open to considering it in my own understanding of eczema. And if you are someone with eczema and you have certain ideas about it, or patterns you see, or things you think could be connected to it, and you want to conduct a survey, put a poll out there and send it to me. I'd be happy to answer it and offer up more information from myself to you in an effort for all of us to understand what this is from the source. So again, this is my effort in contributing to the healing and system of understanding eczema by the people for the people. I hope that you or someone will benefit from this information from this video. I hope this will light a fire, ignite inspiration, and an idea that may be the thing to help us get closer to nailing down what this really is. And I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye!